Call this meeting of the Common Council for the City of Marshfield to order for Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. Roll call. Those who are here, will you sign in? And what about Derek is not on? Okay, we have a quorum. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to item C, identify possible conflicts of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest in that they want to state? I don't see any, so we will move on to item D, public comment period correspondence. At this time, the mayor will recognize persons in attendance wishing to address the council. Upon recognition by the mayor, persons may address the council, first stating their name and address. Comments will be limited to no more than 5 minutes, and persons are asked to be respectful when addressing the council. No action will be taken regarding items not on the agenda. However, the council will take comments from the public under advisement. Please note that council members will not respond to your comments or questions. So we have one this evening, Denise Sonneman from Mackey.
Good evening. My name is Denise Sonneman with the Marshfield Chamber. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. Just wanted to give you a little update on how Dairy Fest went this year. First off, I want to say thank you to the city for their continued partnership. We could not do this without the Parks and Rec and the Street Department. They always go above and beyond every year. We could also not do this without the 199 volunteers we had for this event for the weekend. Something that we did this year was we had geofencing done, which we've never done, to try to get a better accurate numbers of who comes to our event, because that was something we did not know. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. For the mayor's breakfast, we had 1,349 people come through our lines. Picnic in the park, which is at Columbia Park on Friday evening. 926 attendees. That's a snapshot in time. Center's Day Fun Day, which is after the parade. We had 1,071 people. And the one that surprised me the most was the parade. Because as we all know, there's several people on the parade, they may not come to our event afterwards, but we had 11,996 people at the parade on Saturday. The weather was a great help because it was beautiful out. One of the things that geofencing does is tell us where our visitors are from. Most are within a 2 to 3 hour radius of Marshfield, but we did have some stragglers from Chicago, Cleveland, Ohio, and Hernando, Mississippi. I'm not sure who those are, but thank you for coming to our parade. It also gives us some tracking of where they go before and after. A lot of them go to different gas stations, I've noticed. They like the gas station, and to different restaurants throughout Marshfield. So, like again, I said, I just wanted to share this information with you. It's something that we've never had before, and I thought it was quite interesting to see the numbers. And again, to say thank you for your partnership with this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise, and I was glad to hear those numbers. Item F is staff update.
I'm not aware of any this evening.
Okay. Item G is mayor's comments. I have a couple tonight. The first is, how about those Columbus Dons, state Division 4 champions in baseball? And since we don't have a meeting before the 4th of July, I want to wish everyone a happy Independence Day. It's a big year, 250 years of our nation. And I hope that we can all enjoy it with some food and flags and fireworks, and remember all the people that made it happen. Oh, I skipped over one. Sorry, we'll go back to item E, approval of the minutes of the June 9th, 2026 meeting. We have a motion from Mr. Marshall.
Move to approve the minutes from June 9th, 2026 meeting.
And Mr. Cran, you second that?
I do.
Okay, is there any discussion? Ms. Dallas?
I would ask that Steve find out about the Central Wisconsin State Fair Association Executive Board.
We're actually still on the council minutes, but that'll be
I'm
on.
sorry.
That's okay. That'll be on the consent agenda that
Okay,
you're talking
I
about.
apologize.
No problem.
Okay, any other discussion? Have a motion and a second. All those, please vote. Okay,
Wareman?
Yeah.
Tompkins?
Aye.
and that motion passes. Now we'll move on to council comments. Are there any council comments tonight? Mr. Fire?
Yes.
I had the honor to attend a bus trip down to the Brewer game last week. And seeing it, I'm the chairman of the aging committee, and I'm also the chairman of the senior center. We had 48 people that enjoyed the trip. And I would like to comment that the rec department did a great job setting up the bus, and they're hoping we do it again. So if you get 48 seniors that are happy and not complaining, we did real well. And they all had a good time.
There you go.
Mr. Kranz?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted quick follow-up.
I don't think your mic's on.
Is it on now? Oh, there we
Yes.
go. Thank you. Just a quick follow-up on a couple items I had for future agenda last month. We're probably going to get into this today, but it's just two reminders about clarification on ordinances and regulations of e-bikes. And that in particular, I've had constituents talk about not only e-bikes. Class 3 is over 28 miles an hour. For instance, Madison does require that they're registered. Here I noticed that a lot of the e-bikes are on traffic where there's no bike lane. But also the comments are about the e-bikes going really fast. When the car's at a stop sign, I've seen a couple close calls, and I've seen them recently within the last couple days. So we try to want to balance the fun with the safety. So I'd like to try to get the city staff to get clarification on the e-bike rules or regulations for safety. Second thing is I did have a couple constituents bring this up, and I looked at the current ordinances, by the way, for parking, and I have a couple constituents that don't have garages or driveways. And I'm looking into having a parking permit. Of course, it wouldn't apply during snow emergencies, but a parking permit where they can either park on the street or park in a city lot. I have a neighbor and constituent that has to park a couple of blocks away in the city lot, but where they could park on the street without having to call the city. And I know that, like, if I have overnight family or friends, overnight guests, if they had to park on the street, they've had to call the city in to make sure that they didn't get a ticket or park in my driveway. So I just wanted to get clarification on that's the second item. And just going back to the e-bikes too, I did check the state statutes, and there's currently really not many restrictions, as local restrictions on class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes. So that's it for me. Sorry, thank you.
Any other council comment? Okay, we'll move on to the city administrator's update. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, a few things. First of all, we've been trying to get a group together between the Fire and Police Commission and the council for a joint meeting to look at the results of a study that's been done by SCH, our consultant for the Fire Training Center project, looking at one on the south end of town. I tried to schedule a meeting for late this month. It didn't happen. I understand people have busy schedules and so forth. But I'm going to try and schedule it again for sometime in July, hopefully, the next 4 to 5 weeks. So please be looking for your email. When you get an email on your computer, respond to me as soon as possible so we can try and coordinate between Fire and Police Commission members, council members, and other staff and get that lined up so we can hear that report, get a sense of whether or not the current site that's being analyzed is viable, or if there's concerns with it, get a chance for Q&A with that presentation as well. So please be watching your computer for an email from me on trying to arrange that meeting, joint meeting on the Fire Training Center project. Also, as was mentioned by Councilmember Kranz a minute ago, there have been some issues in the last maybe 3 meetings or so, something like that, brought up under items for future agendas that are hanging out there. I apologize for that. I don't like when that happens. I take that personally responsible for getting those to the finish line, whether it be a response by email or a presentation here at a council meeting. He mentioned one of them in the e-bike regulations. I did talk to the police chief earlier today. I'm going to follow up with the city attorney. We'll look at this for you. It is a little bit complicated, as you mentioned. It has to do with things like the speed of traffic and those sorts of things. But maybe looking at what others do and see if we can learn something from them that might help us in that particular issue. And then also later in this meeting, the Finance Director, Jennifer Selensky, will be making a presentation on another item, but I think she'll briefly touch on the issue of the general fund contingency and where we would be if, in fact, we ran that down. I know Councilmember Coran had brought that up. But that's at least 4 or 5 other items that have been brought up in recent meetings, and I pledge to get those back to you during the month of July. And then the final thing I want to note, and this is just kind of a real gentle reminder to everybody, not pointing at any particular incident, but it's come to my attention that there have been times when either someone on the body doesn't come to a meeting and maybe hasn't tipped us off that they're not going to be able to make it, or needs Zoom and we haven't been advised, and so the technology director hasn't set us up for Zoom. Just a gentle reminder to make sure you let us know in advance if you're going to miss a meeting, or if in fact you need remote access in order to make that work, just to help us plan to make sure we have quorums and that we have the proper technology. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Reports from commissions, boards, and committees. Anybody? Okay, item K is the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Fire. Okay, Mr. Varsho, you second that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Ms. Dallas?
Let's try this again. So I would ask that Steve get some clarification on one of the items on the Central Wisconsin State Fair Executive Board. One of the items discussed was, it says the suggestion to engage Don as a neutral third party to assist in discussion with the city and the county regarding the current issues. Or situation, I'm sorry. I would like to know what the current situation they're dealing with is and why they need Don to step in and find out.
I will follow up on that for you.
Thank you.
Ms. Tompkins?
This is just a minor correction for the Parks and Rec minute number 7. It's regarding the Brain Park restroom. Just because they want us to approve the design and methodology, it says mythology. And just because we're approving the whole thing, we should really have it methodology.
I think we can make that correction. And Mr. Rigel?
Thank you. Just to follow up on Ms. Dallas there, were you pulling that agenda item out from the consent agenda or no?
No, their meetings are what, or their minutes are what the minutes are. I just wanted.
Okay, just clarifying. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Please vote.
Merriman?
Yes.
Tompkins?
Aye.
And that motion passed. Item L does not apply. Item M, presentation on the value of the utility presented by Nicholas Cum, General Manager of Marshfield Utility. Nick?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Similar to years past, I'm here tonight to present the Marshfield Utilities Annual Value of the Utility presentation. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize our Marshfield Utilities Commissioners, so Natasha Tompkins, Brian Varsho, Paul Kapla, Mike Ebrel, Mike O'Reilly, Dan Knapp, and Nate Mueller. Their leadership and dedication help ensure that Marshfield Utilities continues to provide exceptional service and value to our community. I'd also like to recognize Jessica Lohr from our team. She did a wonderful job of putting this year's video presentation together. This year's video focuses on the value delivered to our stakeholders, which are the city, our ratepayers, and the broader community as a whole. As an organization, we're always looking for new and innovative ways to provide service, support, improve service, and create value. This year, you'll notice something a little different. This presentation was developed using artificial intelligence tools to help us tell a story in a fresh and engaging way. And don't worry, we did do a test ahead of time to make sure the audio and video would work this time. So with that, I invite you to sit back and enjoy this year's Value of the Utility presentation.
Workers. And I'm Ripple. I may be small, but I represent something pretty powerful, your water. Together, we're here to walk you through the Marshfield Utilities 2026 Value of the Utility presentation. With our theme, Steady Service, Lasting Value. Let's get started. Today, we'll explore the value Marshfield Utilities delivers across three key areas. To the city of Marshfield, to our ratepayers, and to the community as a whole. It's more than just keeping the lights on and water flowing. It's about reliability, affordability, and long-term impact. Let's start with the value we provide directly to the city. Marshfield Utilities is a dependable financial partner to the city, providing stable and predictable revenue year after year. That includes this year's water pilot, electric pilot, and dividend contribution for a total just under $2 million. That's a steady stream the city can plan around. And when compared to overall utility contributions in similar communities, like Wisconsin Rapids at $1.72 million and Stevens Point at about $1.03 million, Marshfield Utilities continues to deliver strong value. Now let's take a closer look at electric reliability. In 2025, we recorded 154 electrical outages, with an average of one customer affected per outage. Two major events, the March ice storm and a vehicle accident on Heritage Drive, accounted for nearly half of all outage minutes. And the everyday causes? The top three causes were trees at 22.7%, followed by squirrels at 20.1%, and birds at 15.6%. Based on the most recent data available, Marshfield Utilities' annual average outage duration is considerably less than our neighboring investor-owned utilities. Compared to Alliant, Excel, and WPS customers in nearby communities, their average outage durations were multiple hours long, compared to MU customers' average outage duration of just under 36 minutes. That's a big difference in downtime. And it shows how focused investment reduces both frequency and duration of outages. In 2025, we pumped just under 750 million gallons of water. That's nearly 2 million gallons every day. We also repaired 45 water main breaks to keep service reliable. And we secured nearly $600,000 in funding from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources to replace lead service lines on private property. That's critical work to protect public health and water quality. A lot of value comes from working smarter together. We collaborate with city departments through shared fiber and connectivity, coordinated wastewater billing, aligned project timing, and shared resources like our GIS software and hosting police department radio equipment. All of that helps reduce costs and avoid duplication, saving time and money. Next, let's look at how we intentionally design our systems for reliability. Most of the time, you don't notice us, and that's by design. We invest in preventative maintenance, including a robust tree trimming program. If a tree threatens safety or reliability along a primary line, we take care of it at no cost to the property owner. We also replace aging infrastructure, convert overhead lines underground, and upgrade substations. All to reduce outages from trees, wildlife, and weather, and improve overall system stability and safety. For residential customers using 600 kilowatt hours per month, Marshfield Utilities' cost is $67.42. That compares to neighboring communities with much higher rates. The savings to MU customers is $500 and more each year. That's a noticeable difference. And it reflects our commitment to keeping rates competitive and predictable. For water service, the monthly cost for 375 cubic feet, about 2,800 gallons, is $29.65 in Marshfield. The water rates are comparable with neighboring communities. Right in line and consistently fair. Our service is local, responsive, and accessible. In 2025, we had 4,157 in-office customer interactions, an increase of 404 from the previous year. We also handled nearly 115,000 text interactions, up by more than 17,000 from the previous year, thanks to expanded notifications like hydrant flushing and past due alerts. Our team answered 12,606 phone calls, totaling over 563 hours of talk time.
This increased outreach to customers helps keep them informed and reduces discolored water calls and customer disconnects.
In 2025, 916 households received energy assistance totaling $160,478. We also provide customer incentives, including toilet rebates, EV charger rebates, and Focus on Energy programs. Since 2019, Marshfield Utilities customers have received more than $1.5 million in total incentives, reflecting our community's continued commitment to energy-efficient technologies and practices. Additionally, we continue progress on private side-led water service replacement, and since 2017, we've secured over $1.62 million in grant funding for these projects.
That's real support for customers when it matters most. Now let's take a look at the value we bring to the community. Investing in the future means investing in people. In 2025, we participated in 9 student-focused events, connecting with 1,320 students from elementary school through college and helping them explore careers in utilities, public service, and skilled trades. We also supported 4 youth apprenticeships in our administration, IT, water, and electric departments, providing hands-on experience and mentorship.
But we don't stop there.
We maintain an established Marshfield Utilities Scholarship through the Marshfield Area Community Foundation. Each year, one graduating student will receive a $1,000 scholarship, and every graduating Marshfield Utilities Youth Apprentice will receive a $250 educational award.
Because developing the next generation of skilled professionals isn't just good for Marshfield Utilities, it's good for our entire community.
Today's students are tomorrow's workforce, leaders, and problem solvers, and we're proud to help support their journey.
Our team is experienced and stable. In 2025, we had a turnover rate below the national averages at 6%. Our average years of service is 11.5 years, across 49 full-time employees.
That kind of experience stays right here in the community.
As a public utility, we reinvest locally. In 2025, we spent just under $2 million with local vendors. Our staff are also active in organizations like the Marshfield Area Community Foundation, United Way, Rotary, and Elks.
And we proudly support local events and initiatives. In 2025, we took on administrative services for the Upper Midwest Municipal Energy Group. We replaced 195 utility side lead services. We also began a private side replacement project. 40 services completed so far, with 62 more planned for 2026, largely funded by the DNR. And we installed 103 new poles, converted 120 area lights, and 668 street lights to LED.
And completed a full rebuild of our data center hardware and software. Steady service requires forward planning. In 2026 and beyond, we're replacing our network switches, upgrading SCADA systems, continuing lead service replacement, and investing in infrastructure. We're also exploring local generation projects to support a more resilient and flexible grid.
Always planning for what's next.
For the city, we provide revenue stability, risk reduction, and coordinated planning.
For ratepayers, that means reliable service, competitive rates, and responsive support.
And for the community, workforce development, local investment, and long-term stewardship.
Marshfield Utilities, locally accountable and future-focused.
Delivering steady service
And lasting value.
Well, thank you. That was the presentation. As you can see, a lot of things going on, a lot of things in the future that we're working on. And I think you can see a lot of value that we provide back to the community. So I'd welcome any questions you may have.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Nick? I just want to say, I think that was the best presentation I've seen in my 10 years in city government.
Very good.
We keep trying to reinvent ourselves. So
Now, if you can just get rid of those squirrels, I mean.
If you want to get an ordinance in place, that'd be great.
No, great job.
Thank you, Nick. Item N is the first reading of ordinance number 1545, rezoning property located at 503 East Ives Street, parcel 33-03216, from CMU, Community Mixed Use, to PD, Planned Development, presented by Steve Bard.
Thank you, Mayor. Normally this presentation will be made by our city planner, James Levin, but he's on vacation this week, so I'm filling in for him. This request is from the Boys and Girls Club to rezone the property, as you mentioned, at 503 East Ives Street, from community mixed use to planned development, being made in conjunction with a property line adjustment to incorporate part of the mall into the Boys and Girls Club project. The intent is to bring the combined property under one unified planned development district. The mall is currently general commercial on the comprehensive plan. Now, normally when you hear about somebody going into a mall, you think about them leasing or renting space. In this case, the Boys and Girls Club is planning to actually acquire the property that they'll be in and renovate it. It's a 30,000 square foot property, formerly JCPenney, physically attached to the mall, and they want to operate it as a standalone youth center. The club plans to take ownership of the building and the land beneath it so that it can independently finance, renovate, and operate the facility. The renovation is targeted to begin in the fall of 2026 if all comes together, and of course we're coming up on that soon, with the center opening in 2027. And to accomplish this, the former department store space must be separated from the rest of the mall into its own separate parcel. Because the former JCPenney building, which is currently Kingdom Storage, shares structural walls, roof elements, and common site systems with the rest of the mall, dividing the space into a new parcel produces lots that cannot independently satisfy the requirements of the community mixed-use district. Therefore, under city code, a development like this must be approved as a planned development that would allow the Boys and Girls Club to operate a standalone site and permit them to be owned and operated independently. And again, this is not the norm. We haven't seen this in my, I think, 15 years here, so it's not something that normally comes to our attention as a request. So the Boys and Girls Club is looking for approval of a general development plan to rezone the mall to planned development. And this would set the general pattern of land use, internal development areas, structural infrastructure, and the categories of flexibility that you would seek. Now, this is not just for the mall or the Boys and Girls Club itself. It would be for the entire property. And this would help the developer, presumably, in his future planning for the mall site. Under a general development plan, if this is approved by you, then a specific site implementation plan would be needed within 12 months to kind of narrow down and deal with the issues specifically that have yet to be resolved. So 3 characteristics that make plan development appropriate, according to our city planner, James Levin, who's done a good job of analyzing this. Number 1, it has to be a division that base zoning cannot accommodate. In other words, there's no other way using typical zoning that could make this approvable for you. Number 2 is that the site systems must be governed as a whole. What are the site systems? We're talking about parking aisles, access points, stormwater facilities, utility services, all those kind of things that are have to be looked at when you're trying to separate into a new parcel of land, a part of a building that's currently attached to a mall, which is a little bit complicated. And then finally, an institutional use entering an active commercial center needs to be looked at, and that's what we've done. We find that the youth center is not contrary to the purpose of the retail environment. We believe it will work together with the existing mall and interface well if in fact these items are addressed and resolved prior to final approval. So in the June 17th Plan Commission agenda packet, City Planner James Levin evaluated the request for compliance, looking at all the criteria that are required under the zoning code. He found no apparent conflicts. More information will need to be provided by the applicant as part of the specific implementation plan. That would be the next step in the process if the council grants its approval tonight. Having said that, the city planner did recommend to the Planning Commission 6 conditions of approval, which I believe were embraced from what I understand in the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. Those are they must demonstrate building and fire separation of the divided structure. Well, that's going to work. They need to demonstrate that they have adequate shared parking for themselves plus the rest of the mall. They'll need to execute the necessary cross easements and maintenance agreements, because it will be a little bit complicated in terms of the utilities and some other things, making sure that we know who's responsible for what when the day is done between Boys and Girls Club and the mall proper. We'll need to see owner consent and control, meaning recorded easements and contracts between the two parties, again, to cement the relationship. And we don't have misunderstandings going forward in years to come as to who is responsible for what. Fifth one would be approval of a certified survey map to create the new parcel that's required. It has to be a separate parcel of land under a certified survey. And then we need to confirm, when we get all this stuff from the developer and the applicant, that the current agreement that the city has with the mall that was approved in 2022 is not negatively affected by this. For example, there's a requirement in terms of how much new valuation has to be created and maintained by the mall. They've more than created it, but we need to make sure that that's going to be continued in future years. We want to make sure that there's no conflict ultimately between the agreement we signed in 2022 and how the Boys and Girls Club occupation of that facility will modify that. So ultimately, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of those conditions. The staff is recommending council approval of the general development plan and the rezoning of this property from community mixed use to planned development, subject to the conditions that I just mentioned being incorporated, and the certified survey map and the specific implementation plan coming forward and being approved within 12 months. I would say, though, this is still first reading of the ordinance. As you know, that means we're not looking for any action tonight. We would set up the second reading and potential adoption for the July 14th council meeting. But at this time, I would take questions that you have about anything, and I do realize it's complicated and not the normal type of application we have. Any questions?
Mr. Rigel.
And please enlighten me here, because I'm probably in the dark. I know a lot of those conditions that were laid forth, we can actually look into right now. Is there a reason we're not looking into those and asking for approval now, as opposed to the other way around?
You mean that list of things that I read?
Yeah, so like, for example, the one that's sticking out to me is, how is this going to impact the development agreement with the mall, which is a very, wise thing to anticipate, but shouldn't we have an answer now before we start approving the change in the zoning?
That's a really terrific question. And the reality is we've preliminarily seen that it doesn't have any conflict. We don't see any reason to believe that the mall won't be able to maintain the minimum value of that property with what's required in the agreement. And we're not seeing any other conflicts. But by the time we get the agreements that I'm talking about between the parties, there might be an issue that we're wondering about, the stormwater issue or the utilities or something to do with how that property is maintained, the parking, that might call into question some provision of that 20-page agreement we have with the mall. We don't expect it, but we want to reserve the right to look at the final covenants and agreements that are coming together, make sure there literally is absolutely no conflict with the DA.
Right, so we're not putting the cart ahead of the horse here as far as making the change, the planning or the zoning, excuse me?
No, I don't think so. At this point, a general development plan and the rezoning, I don't think we're putting ourselves ahead of it. Ultimately, you're going to be asked to approve this in 3 weeks, of course, but you'll also be getting the specific implementation plan later, where that'll boil all the details down. Now you're into the nuts and bolts and making sure that everything stacks up. But again, I want to say one more time, it's not like we haven't looked at this compared to the development agreement that we adopted in 2022, with the main thing being to preserve that minimum value that they're required to have. But again, we just want to see that all the other pieces come together. I think it's a 5 or 6 month process overall. It started back in, I don't know, April or whatever, but it's a thoughtful process, and we'll make sure that we cover everything.
Right, no, and like I said, my biggest concern isn't that, it's just that, getting the easements, all this other stuff. It's a lot more to it than just saying it, and that's a lot of work where potentially it could fall through, and then we're sitting here in 6 months' time undoing this. That's my only concern.
Yeah, I think the one concern maybe you're hinting at, without saying it specifically, is we go ahead and rezone the property, and then it doesn't happen. Why do we want the property zoned as a planned development, potentially?
Exactly.
And I assume that the final approval of the planned development will be, I don't know if it can be tied to this project, but I think that's a really good question to be looked at and discussed with the city attorney, because final approval of rezoning, that does change more than just the space that the mall would, that the Boys and Girls Club would occupy. So that's a good point to evaluate.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Tompkins?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what Steve just said. Did you just say that there is a potential problem if we rezone now and then this agreement doesn't go through? What would that potential problem be?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure necessarily there's a problem, and this is something I would want to explore more with the city attorney, but I mean, the thought is typically you don't normally tie a rezoning to a particular project. Once a property is rezoned, let's say, property is rezoned from, hypothetically, from residential to commercial, then anything that's allowed in the commercial district would be potentially allowable, even if that project didn't come to pass, the one that you wanted. Any of the uses listed in the commercial district would be something that the folks in that area would have to expect as a possibility. I'm not familiar with the planned development, maybe as much as I should be. If this property were to be rezoned to planned development, would that create concerns in terms of the future development if in fact the Boys and Girls Club project never came to fruition? And sitting here, I think that's a good question to make sure that we address before final zoning approval is given, before we rezone the property from CMU to PD. And it's something, I don't know if James has addressed this with you or not, but it's something we'd have to address before any final approval would be given on the rezoning. I'm not suggesting there's a problem necessarily. I'm just suggesting that that's a good point that Councilmember Rigel raised.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we will look at this again, July 14th. Item O is a request to approve budget resolution number 16-2026, continuing appropriations, presented by Jennifer Skolensky, Finance Director. Jennifer.
Good evening. You'll recall towards the end of 2025, I came to you and asked to put some funds into our committed fund balance to be carried forward into the budget for this year. This step is actually we've reevaluated that list, and this step would be to actually put those items in the budget through a resolution. If you refer to your packet, for the general fund, we just have one carry forward, and it's for in-process software implementation. That's $36,257. The offset to that would be a reduction in our contingency balance. And should you approve this budget resolution, that contingency balance would drop to just under $36,000. There is another section of carry forward funds from other funds in our capital projects. Our system doesn't do that automatically for us. So these were all items that were approved in various projects that were approved in various funds that have not yet been completed. So I have looked at those and listed those amounts for you. So with that, I would ask for your approval of Budget Resolution 16-2026 for the purpose of increasing the budget in accordance with items added to the committed fund balance in the previous year. Before we go ahead and do that, I did want to address Alderperson Cran's question about what happens when the contingency spending is gone. I'll go back to when we set up our budget, we budget contingency amounts for more than one purpose. These amounts help the city to maintain financial stability, preserve our budget flexibility, and respond to unforeseen needs without exceeding the adopted budget. Our contingency budgeting practice is designed to accomplish three objectives. First, we want to make sure that we have unassigned fund balance that is in line with our policy, which is 25 to 30% of budgeted expenditures. Second, we want to preserve eligibility for the state's expenditure restraint incentive program. And this is a program where the state provides aid to municipalities that meet certain levy and expenditure growth conditions. For 2026, our contingency for this part of our budget is set at $819,000. The funding source associated with this is our fund balance. However, this amount is really just budgeted as a financial strategy to preserve the statutory expenditure capacity and maintain eligibility for the program. It's not intended to be spent under normal circumstances. And for the purposes of this discussion and going forward, we'll refer to this as the ERIP contingency. Lastly, our budget is to provide a safeguard for unforeseen costs that occur during the year. Budgeting for contingency, we budget for this in the city administrator's contingency account, helps prevent the city from inadvertently exceeding its adopted budget as amended. This could result in a disqualification of next year's incentive payment, which is about $500,000. So our operational contingency, known as the city administrator's contingency, is an amount of specific spending authority, and access to this spending is only granted through a budget resolution. For 2026, the operational contingency amount is $318.18. The funding source for this account is also fund balance, whether that's committed, like this continuing appropriations, or unassigned fund balance. Once the operational contingency is exhausted, that budget authority is no longer available. At that point, departments must identify other expenditures that can be delayed, reduced, or deferred. If no other reasonable alternative exists, council could use the ERIP contingency as a last resort. We should note that the use of the ERIP contingency should really be limited to extraordinary circumstances. In general, it should be considered only when failure to appropriate the funds would materially impair the city's ability to maintain essential municipal operations or services. So with that, I would ask that you approve the budget resolution, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
Ms. Spiros, what's your motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Marshall, you second that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, are there any questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. Please vote.
Wehrman?
Yes.
Tompkins?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item P is a request to approve resolution number 2026-12, Marshfield Utilities Safe Drinking Water Fund Loan Borrowing, presented by Nicholas Baum, General Manager, Marshfield Utilities. Nick.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, I'm requesting approval of Resolution 2026-12, which is a reimbursement resolution required as part of Marshfield Utilities' application for funding through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Safe Drinking Water Loan Program associated with emerging contaminants. The funding application is for the design and construction of a permanent PFAS facility at our South Wellfield, which will replace the existing temporary treatment system and provide a long-term solution for PFAS treatment. It's important to note that the approval of this resolution does not commit the city or the utility to accept a loan. Rather, it establishes our intent to reimburse eligible project costs from future loan proceeds should funding be awarded and approved. Marshfield Utilities was ranked near the top of the preliminary project priority list that was released by the DNR in May, with funding levels are expected to be provided in December of this year. Proposed changes to the emerging contaminants funding program could significantly increase the amount of principal forgiveness available for our project, and also, which would also be a reduced cost to our customers. The Marshfield Utility Commission reviewed this and approved this resolution back on June 15th at their meeting and is recommending approval by the Common Council. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, the recommended motion is to approve Resolution 2026-12.
Mr. Giles, what is your motion?
Motion to approve Resolution 2026-12.
And Ms. Dallas, you second that?
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion? Ms. Tompkins?
Mr. Cum, I'm just wondering if you maybe could take this opportunity just to let the public know how many PFAS we're currently filtering out of our drinking water, and if this new permanent facility will have capacity for more PFAS as they're sort of labeled that they need to come out.
It's not really a capacity type thing. I guess it's more just the fact that there is PFAS within the water, and there are state regulations that were set by the EPA that we are meeting with the current system, and the future system would continue that into the future. I would note that the EPA has relaxed their rules, yet the state has still maintained a higher testing requirement. But at the end of the day, the system is designed so that it can meet today's needs and the future needs of the system and the community.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we have a motion to approve the resolution. Please vote.
Wehrman?
Yes.
Tompkins?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Thank you.
Nick. Item Q is a presentation for operational rationale for a larger garage for police department relocation and funding options for the added costs requested by council members Coran and Dallas, and will be presented by Jody Goering, Police Chief, and Jennifer Swansky, Finance Director.
Yeah, and if it's okay, I'm going to make some opening comments and they'll turn it over to you, Chief, if that's all right.
Yep, go ahead.
I'll keep it short, but just a little context for what we're doing here again. At a recent presentation by Kramer Brothers, the construction manager for the police department relocation project, it was noted that the current plan, which meets council's budget requirements, includes approximately half of the garage space that had originally been proposed. Since that night, council members Coran and Dallas have requested in writing that further discussion on a larger garage space be placed on the June 23rd agenda. Specifically, the request called for a staff presentation including two things. First, a report from the police chief addressing operational rationale for more garage space. And then secondly, an input from the finance director on possible ways that could help to fund the added cost of this improvement. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Chief Goering for a presentation on the operational rationale for the larger garage. He'll be followed by Finance Director Jennifer Selinsky, touching on the funding issue. And then I'll wrap up after she's done with some final comments before turning it over to the mayor for discussion. Chief?
Okay, thank you, Steve, and good evening, everyone. As Steve mentioned to us, I've been asked to give a presentation about the effects of the service and operation of our department with the smaller garage. The design of the smaller garage was developed to meet budget requirements, and we realized that the smaller garage would cause inefficiencies in our service and likely not have the sustainability that we hoped for a building that we want to design to last for decades to come. So tonight, I hope to give a snapshot of at least some of those shortcomings that we've identified. I hope we have Eric Cook appearing on Zoom tonight. Eric Cook is from Kramer Brothers, and he can give us a snapshot on where the budget is and the design that we have and what it would take to increase to the full-size garage. And then finally, as Administrator Barg said, the Finance Director Selinsky will have some high-level funding strategies that you all can consider. And of course, we can have time for some questions at the end. Okay, and we got to move on. Here we go. All right, so our current facilities on the left, you'll recognize as our police department. And on the right is the Baltus building. So on the police department side, our garage is about 1,400 square feet. That's the garage that's attached to the building that we're currently in. And then in the Baltus building is kind of an L-shaped building. We just utilize the northernmost part of that. And that building has about 6,740 square feet of space. The building is in rather poor condition, but we do appreciate having that space to use. And we recognize also that it's in a vital spot for the proposed 2nd Street project. The grand total of garage space that we have in our current facilities, this is including the police department and the Baltus building, is 8,146 square feet. You'll probably remember that ADCI did a feasibility study back in 2023. And what they identified is that our current space, including the garage and office, are both insufficient. They identified that our operational office space should be approximately 23,000 square feet, and that our garage space should be about 11,000 square feet. So moving to the Wildwood Plaza building, this is an overall view of it, obviously. The footprint of the Plaza building has 23,400 square feet. But you'll notice there's no garage on this property. So in order to use it as a police department, we would either have to build a garage or we would have to use some of this existing space to create a garage and build office space. We started to work with BKV, who is our architect, and we came up with 2 different designs. The rendering on the left is the design which is in budget with a smaller garage, and then the full-size garage is the add alternate. We used the footprint of the building for the office space because it matched exactly what the feasibility study was. So we have 23,400 square feet on both of the designs. The only difference in either design is the size of the garage. So the total garage size in the in-budget is 5,662 square feet. And the add alternate, or the full-size garage, is exactly double that amount, which is 11,324 square feet. So moving back to the in-budget, the garage that we have in this plan is about 5,000 square feet less than what was identified in our feasibility study, and is 3,000 square feet less than what our current facilities have. We did recognize some potential safety issues with the reduced garage that I just want to bring to your attention. First of all is the exposed courtyard area, which is right in front. I don't know if I can point with this or not. It's right in front up here in the courtyard. To take a half step back, when we design police departments in today's age, what we want to do is have a public side and a private side. The public side of our building is kind of on that south side of our structure. And what that's intended to do is, just as I said, it's to invite the public. That's where we have the lobby, the training area. We'd have report rooms that we can take reports in, a conference room, and a place where we can conduct business with public. On the private side, when we design a police department, what we want to do is create a space where our officers can let their guard down, they can do their work, they can decompress. They might have to vent a little bit after a bad call, but we want to provide that space to where they're separate from that public eye. And with the exposed courtyard, this courtyard was designed to be one of those spaces where they'd be able to vent or decompress. With it being an earshot and eye shot of the front lobby, it does create a little bit of a difference from what we designed initially with that space. Also, unfortunately, if you remember in Minnesota just a few years ago, there was some breaching of police departments, so we do try to make that as hard as possible. And with this open design and the exposed windows, and there's actually some doors in the actual design that aren't in this rendering, it does make this a potential breach point that we would have to address with some sort of barriers or some other thing to prevent anyone from driving into those areas or smashing in. The other two I can address in a future slide here, but our ability to respond quickly to emergencies and inclement weather, and also we feel that the secured area of the parking will be filled up quicker than what we anticipated it would. I can't do cartoons like Nick, so this is the best I can do. So just to explain what we're looking at here, this visualization or illustration design is to focus on the space difference between the two garages. Now in this visual, we have all of our daytime, weekday employees, which is our busiest time, accounted for, and they're represented in these little hash marks, which would be vehicles. All the vehicles, we also have all the vehicles that we own in this illustration, and it would be rare to have all of that on one property at one time. I don't want to confuse that. All I want to do is just have an illustration to describe kind of a worst case scenario on what our lot would look like. So on the left, the in-budget design, these peach-colored vehicles up on top would be our employee vehicles, and you can see they're kind of spread out throughout. The yellow would be our patrol car. But the remaining vehicles inside of this garage would likely be in this area almost all of the time. So what I chose, if we had limited space in our garage, what I would do is have our detective vehicles, which are emergency responding vehicles. I would keep them in the garage all of the time because, one, we keep those vehicles a lot longer than patrol, and we don't use them as often as patrol. So if they're not used very often and out in the lot in inclement weather, it increases the chance that they're not going to start when we need them to or be buried in snow, where the patrol vehicles should be out moving and running most of the time. And so that chances are better that they'd be able to respond to emergencies. So our blue vehicles there are detectives, which would be in the garage all the time. Our red vehicles is our SRT, our special response team. Those are diesel engines, so we need to have those inside all the time. Those are rather large vehicles. The purple vehicle down there is our ordnance vehicle, which is an expensive vehicle that we want to keep much longer than like our patrol vehicles. And they sometimes have some equipment that's susceptible to weather inside of that vehicle. And then, like I said, the yellow is our patrol vehicles. So one of those patrol vehicles is an extra vehicle, and that's actually a K-9 vehicle that we keep. The reason that we do that is because when a squad car goes down, it really affects our ability, and we need to have vehicles available all the time, obviously. I kept a K-9 car because it's got safety equipment for the dog, so it protects us of if a first line squad goes down or a K-9 vehicle goes down, we have that safety issue for the K-9. So that vehicle isn't used all that often. We keep it on a battery tender so it can respond. So that would stay in the garage all the time as well, which would leave 2 spots for working patrol if they have to come in, and then anyone else who comes after that would have to park outside, requiring them to keep the cars running and things like that during the inclement weather so they can still respond. And again, just for illustration purposes, we moved the same amount of vehicles over into the add alternate, and we're able to fit all of our vehicles inside of the garage and still have some spaces left over. All of the employees are able to fit in the parking lot. And what this illustrates is really in the worst case scenario, our facilities would still be able to house everybody on that site. And we still have rooms in the garage for things like a lawnmower and snow blower and tools and other things that we keep in our garage to keep things moving. With the add alternate, I think this illustrates kind of what I was talking about the courtyard. You can see that it's rather enclosed. Our designers thought that that would look almost like jail-like or prison-like, but like I said before, we need to have a space where our employees can decompress and possibly vent a little bit, and this creates that. It also solves that breach point, and so really with the larger garage or the add alternate version, we address all of the safety issues that I identified. Finally, just a review on the funding that we've had. So in 2023, the council approved $10.8 million. So that was $800,000 for design and engineering, and then $10 million for the construction costs. And then you'll recall just a few weeks ago, we were awarded a grant, and the council voted to add that on top of our funding source, bringing a total budget to 11.6. At this point, if Eric's available, I'd like him to touch on where we are with the budget now and what it would take if it's decided to move forward with a full garage. Eric, are you there?
Yeah, thanks. Yep, I'm here. So right now, we presented a guaranteed maximum price. We have kind of vetted out some options on that, maybe some potential cost savings, but we are holding at that $9,992,000 budget, which includes the smaller garage. So all good signs there. We did take bids on precast as early procurement on that. Contracts have not been awarded. I do have a letter of intent out to our lowest qualified precast supplier. They are holding a production slot for us for the larger garage, but they do need an answer on that fairly soon. I think that's maybe the urgency here is we got to lock in that precast with data centers is extremely long lead time right now. The added garage, adding the square foot is $1.3 million, slightly less than that. That's where it's budgeted at right now. I'm extremely confident in that budget, and I know we are hoping for some bid day savings. We're not banking on that, but we are hoping for that. So all signs are great right now. I think we chiseled down a budget that was high. The police department's done a great job getting this back in the budget. So yeah, that's where we're at budget-wise, and the urgency to get the precast ordered and under contracts, we want that at.
Eric, just
Kramer Brothers.
Eric, just real quick, the budget amount that you have now, does that include the $800,000 grant?
That does not. So it would be off that. So if we took the 1.3, we took 800,000 off of that for the grant, 500,000.
So the budget that Eric's talking about is actually what the proposed cost would be for the new building. He did not add in that number the $800,000 for the grant. So this is just with the small garage, just as we were, like the grant never happened. Jennifer?
So we would be looking to fill a $500,000 gap, and some of the possible means to do so would be delaying some purchases within, these would be police vehicles in the 2027 PIC that could free up some debt capacity to apply towards the garage. A second source, we do have some unallocated proceeds from sales of previous police vehicles. Those proceeds could be used towards this building. Otherwise, they would just get recycled to purchase additional police vehicles. We do have a surplus in our general fund, and we could apply some dollars from there towards this project. Also, potentially, there could be project savings, but these would need to be identified and guaranteed by Kramer before we could apply those to this additional garage space. And then lastly, we could do a short-term borrowing with our state trust fund loan program. That option allows us to pay off that debt at any time, given a notice. We could use from proceeds from the sale of the existing police building whenever that could occur. So rather than putting it in a debt that's amortized over 20 years, we could use those funds to pay it down at that time.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. And before any additional questions or discussion, I just want to give you a sense of where we stand tonight. By putting this on the agenda tonight, the recommended action is discretion of the council. I obviously give you leeway to make a motion of some type if you wish to do so. When the conversation is over here, I'm not expecting that tonight. I just wanted you to know that that's allowable. In fact, if there is an interest in pursuing the additional garage, and you're listening to what Jennifer just said as to how far as possible funding options, you could indicate that to us, and we could come back to you, in the first meeting in July with maybe a little bit more concrete look at how that might be accomplished. Right now, we just wanted you to know that those are possibilities to bridge the gap. So anyway, having said that, I want you to know that you don't need to do anything tonight, as I said, but there's a time sensitivity to this because the project is going to start ramping up pretty soon, and really we need to know by the second meeting in July. In other words, roughly 30 days from now. I think the second meeting in July is the 28th. If in fact you want to sign on to making it work, to provide the funding for the larger garage. So I think, keep that in mind as you're thinking about this issue. It's not like an unending discussion, because after that time, it's not impossible later, but it's not going to be part of the project that we're discussing and have been discussing here for a while. So anyway, with this, I turn back the discussion to the mayor and look forward to the conversation.
Okay, we have Mr. Cran wants to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to move to incorporate the 27 stall option and proceed with planning, design, financing of the project as the preferred alternative, and return to us any necessary budget financing or project amendments that would be needed in order to move forward with the larger police station.
And Mr. Crans, you second that?
Can you clarify that just one? I'm sorry to second it, but I didn't clarify that, please.
Is it as simply as rereading it, or?
Okay, so in my view, I've toured the facility. They need the full garage, and I support the full garage. Is that what you're
That's
indicating?
my motion. I think we need to do the 27 the larger garage as the preferred option.
Thank you.
And instruct city staff to bring back anything they need to us as far as financing plan changes in order to incorporate this timeline to get us, to be able to order the prefab by August.
I stick to my second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Spiros, you're up first.
Thank you. So I have quite a few questions and then just a couple of statements. I'm really disappointed in this because we were sold this police station as its major need being enough parking. So I would have thought in the original design that would have been anticipated and included in the original cost. It feels, again, like a switch and bait, which is unfortunately too typical coming with projects with this city. So a $500,000 gap. The first choice was delay police vehicle purchases. Delay means what? That you delay 3 vehicles next year and then push 6 to us the following year? What does that mean, delay police vehicles? Secondly, what is the unallocated proceeds? What is the amount of that you have? Also related to vehicles. And what would we have done with those unallocated proceeds if we weren't using them to build a garage that we were already promised in the original budget?
So as far as pushing off vehicles, really it would be about 1 vehicle is what we're hoping. There's a dollar amount that we have to reach that Jennifer can help us. I don't know what the other funding sources would be. So I'd work with her. In my mind, I think if we could push off 1 vehicle to help offset this cost so we have a long-term investment, it would be worth it.
Push it off forever? Push it off till next year?
What we would do, normally we buy 3 squad cars a year. We would buy 2 and then buy 3 the next year.
So you would stick to the same schedule? You would just cut yourself out 1 vehicle?
Right.
What does 1 vehicle cost?
I think it's right around 75. I'd have to look at where we were.
So 70, you'd be finding 75,000 out of the 500,000 you need doing that.
That
Okay.
may be the detective vehicle, and the squad car may be a little bit more than that. I can get that for you.
Okay. And the unallocated proceeds, what's there?
Currently, what's there is roughly 60,000.
And what would we normally use that proceeds for that we wouldn't be using it for now?
We would apply it to a reduction in borrowing for the subsequent year's vehicles. So
Okay.
instead of borrowing, if it was 300,000, we'd apply an amount towards that. The other thing that unallocated money could be used for is if there were an emergency need in the police department for an undercover, there's money available.
Got you. So the 60,000 would roughly mean now we're at 2 vehicles. Okay. Surplus general fund. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. Our, steal my thunder for my presentation later.
Sorry.
That's quite all right. We're going to be closing the year 2025 with an increase in our fund balance of over $1 million. So some of that money could be applied to this project.
Why only some of it?
The gap is 500. So if we're looking at delaying 160 from the vehicles or thereafter.
Okay, so you're
right.
doing a combination of things.
Right.
Got
So
you.
we're
Okay.
stacking lots of sources here.
Okay, got you. Sale of existing building, there's no number tied to that. We don't know how long that would take. So my question would be, if we delayed doing this larger garage and waited until the sale of the existing building, could they come back and build on to your garage?
I'm going to have Eric help me out with a little bit with that. Can we do it? Yeah, the cast is made so that we can add on at any time. But Eric, I don't know if you can talk to the pros or cons of that.
No real pros. I got a lot of cons. So what you run into, obviously, pushing it down the road is added cost. That added cost, you could, by my math, roughly, without inflation, is going to be about 20% more. Why 20% more? You'd have to demo that end wall that is there. Add on, you're operating in an already existing functioning police department. you have tie-ins to the existing that you would do typically right away. Added site work, added mobilizations. So I'm at about a 20% number, and I think that may be low, depending on what inflation does to that. So it's a fairly significant added investment to do it later. This is not a sales pitch. This is just reality. It's never cheaper than it is today. The most cost-effective time to do items is today.
Okay.
Average construction inflation is about 6 to 7% a year.
Okay. I understand what you're saying, and I do realize, costs just do nothing but go up as time elapses, and I get that. I would challenge you on having difficulty finding pros. A pro would be that the city would be borrowing less money, which is always a good thing. And then can you tell me how the garage wasn't a priority in the original plans when that is what the council's direction was?
I don't think that would be Eric's point. Where we looked at the priority, one is that the building had 23,000 square feet, so it fit what feasibility said for our office space. What our feasibility study also told us is that to create garage space inside of that office space, it's always cheaper to build garage space than it is office space. What we took as direction was the budget was the most important thing. And we saw that we could have a plan that was in budget that at least met the office space needs and gave us some options as far as moving forward with it. So that's why we chose to go that direction.
Okay, so with this $500,000 gap, if we were to go ahead and do that, what would the total of this project end up being?
About 12.1?
Yeah.
12.1, okay. I'm just losing track of numbers, and I couldn't quite hear when he presented the one number.
Got sidetracked too. I'm not good at math.
I couldn't hear him. It kind of like cut out for a second. So
I looked right at finance.
So, okay, so we're at $12.1 million building, and I don't mean to be, listen, I understand how important the police department is. I fully back the blue. I fully support you having an area to decompress and be protected from the public. I understand all that. This is not what this is about. This is about a city struggling with tight budgets and not getting what we were expecting and always being handed surprises. At the time, we threw around building a brand new building, and that cost would have came in at $13 million. So now we're $900 million shy of having a brand new building, and that is extremely disappointing to me. So with that said, my thing would be, we can get the money probably using the multiple methods that you listed, but when the sale of that building, the old building comes through, I expect all of those accounts to be paid back with the sale of that money. I don't think that money should then go into the police budget.
Okay, Ms. Tompkins, I think you were up next.
Thank you. I also had a few questions. The first is for our chief. I noticed on the design, it looked like with the full garage and all of the vehicles moved in, potentially, are there 2 open parking spots? Is that what's left?
Yeah, there was a couple open parking spots within the garage you're talking, not in the parking lot, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there was, it didn't fill up the entire garage.
Okay, and so my question is, do you anticipate in the next 10 years that the fleet would increase?
I don't. I don't see our department being one that's going to grow. Our population has not grown. I don't think that we're one to grow. What I'm more worried about is things that we can't anticipate that are going to take space. Look at what happened with just where we're going with electric. All of those things take space, and so it gives us some opportunity to have other stuff, I guess, or room to grow.
Okay, and then a question for Jennifer. when you stated that there's about $1 million surplus, you're going to bring that into the discussion later. That is over the 25 million cap that we save. Is that correct?
That is this year's surplus. So what
that's this year's surplus.
Right. So what you're referring to is our fund balance in general. So that would increase our fund balance above our policy limit.
Okay.
Or our policy guides. Yeah.
So in your opinion, as the finance director, if, let these vehicles and the money that they got from selling vehicles, it looks like it might be close to 135,000, but let's just say for this discussion, with you being the finance director, if we were to use $500,000 from the surplus, and I realize it's going to be less, how do you think that's a wise move?
It can be. When your fund balance is above your policy, the best way to utilize that money is on one-time things. So not introducing new ongoing expenditures into your budget. So this would be an ideal candidate as a one-time use.
All right, thank you.
Next up, I think was Mr. Rigel.
Thank you. Ms. Spiro stole most of my questions, so you can thank her later. I guess I got a couple of questions here. Could you walk me through the space of the parking lot or the parking area right now? I think you said about 8,000 square feet, including the, what's the building on the corner called?
Baltus.
Thank you. But I believe you said you're only using a corner of the Baltus building and not the entire Baltus building?
No. When you look at the Baltus building from the outside, it's kind of an L-shaped building. It's a little bit deceiving.
Right.
We only use the north side of that L. The other side isn't usable for us.
Right, so when you gave the 8,000 square feet,
It's just that.
that's just what you're using, not the entire building?
Yep, exactly.
Then they said they wanted a decision on this fairly soon, which is the end of July. What's the effect if we don't get to it till August or something like that?
Eric, I don't know if you can answer that.
Yeah, the effect would be that we ultimately lose our production slot with the precaster. So we are going to be under contract for sure for the smaller portion of the garage. So that is based on design. We would lose our production slot and we would risk not getting our precast concrete in the time that we need it would be very early spring, late winter, which is a very real possibility. A lot of the data centers utilize precast concrete. So we were able to issue Wells Concrete a letter of intent saying, hey, here's the, we're going to issue a contract hopefully for the small garage. Would you be open to holding the production spot for us? With our relationship with Wells, they were open to that. They trust us that, hey, you'll give us the information as soon as possible, but they are looking to fill that spot if they can.
Gotcha, thank you. And then going back to the multiple sources of funding, I think we covered most of it, but if delaying the purchase of another vehicle or just foregoing it, let me not say delay because I think that's the wrong word. If we're just foregoing it for 1 year, how is that going to impact the police department?
It's not something we want to do a lot of, but we're in a position right now where I haven't purchased the 26 vehicles yet because the state bids are yet to come out. So we've switched our buying pattern. We used to buy earlier in the year. Now we're buying a little bit later in the year. I just feel more comfortable with where we are in the budget cycle and later in the year. So we haven't purchased yet this year. So with us buying late this year and then able to buy a couple next year, it's a really good timing to where we can just pick up 2 years from now, right where we left off.
Right, so could we go to that pattern down the road in the future?
This is the first year that we're switching to the late, and that's what's opening that up. So now that I'm buying later in the year, I'm going to have newer vehicles.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Next year? Okay.
But we couldn't?
I mean, we can go back and then again.
I'm saying in the future, instead of doing 3 cars every year, do 2, then 3, then 2.
We've tried to do that. We had to during COVID. And what ends up happening is that we pay it on the other side with maintenance.
Okay.
So it's a juggling act.
Okay, I think it's just worthwhile for me to echo Rebecca's sentiments there too of much of what was proposed early on was the parking in the garage. And then to see now that it's still coming up short is disappointing, to say the least. And it's nothing to do with, backing the police or not. It has everything to do with the fact that we were told one thing and surprise, here's another. So not particularly thrilled on that either. And with that, I'll stop.
Mr. Warman.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to try to, I think I'm playing a little bit of both sides here. I agree that we need this. I think this is something we talked about early on. I agree with Mr. Grant that I think we should move forward with this. To that counterpoint, though, that Ms. Spiros and Mr. Reigel have brought up, it is a little frustrating just because I know that we had an agreement. Like we came in kind of saying like, hey, we know how this stuff works and it tends to come back. And what we want to do is get ahead of it. And I really thought bringing Kramer Brothers in, I think was a great move because it has helped us control the budget a lot better. And I think also stay on top of the timelines. And I think they've done a fantastic job over here, making sure that we don't put ourselves into a hole. Jody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I kind of feel like the parking was a little bit on us. I felt like when we pushed back, and I'll be honest, it was a lot of me pushing back early to say like, what are our needs and wants? Parking may have been one of the things where they said like, if we had to pull back on this, we could. It's not what we want to do, but like we need cost savings. So like, I don't think this completely falls on like a lack of design or lack of trust up front saying this is what we need. I think it may be a combination of trying to do the right thing to save costs, but still get as much scope out of it as possible. That being said, the two things I want to say is I would caution any comparison to building out a new building. I know it seems that way because the initial numbers we got were 13 to 15 million. So keep in mind 13 million's on the low end, kind of like what we were doing here of saying we have a low end and let's say it's 8 to 10 million. We were saying we're going to expect 10 million. So we're kind of doing the same type of thing. 13 million was the low end. It was very likely never going to come in at 13 million. That's also just what we were getting a building for. That doesn't include the allocation of land. That doesn't include any public works that would have to be done if we had to cut in different street entrances, any additional major plumbing infrastructure that goes underneath, which we've talked about a lot in council lately. So like there are a lot of added costs that we didn't even get to for a new building. So I would just say like 13 is not realistic. It still sucks that we're getting closer to that number, but just as we talk about that, I would keep in mind like that number would have definitely been a lot higher. And then the second thing is, Jody, I know that I pushed on this a lot. I would say putting my project management hat on here, like I totally get the need and I want to support this and I will definitely support the motion. My argument would be, we talked a lot about like what are our needs and wants. And I think I had mentioned like the shooting range and things like that. I would love to hear from you guys. If we're going to approve this, are there things that we can cut or remove to try to keep our budget as low as possible? I know we kind of value engineered this as much as possible, but like if parking is a need, does that mean our shooting range is, not a need? And does that mean like certain other things are not a need? Like I'm using that specific example, but like, is there anything else in this current design that we would say like, we would love to have this. It's important to us, but it's not going to have the same impact as a parking garage. Because those are things that we should look at to say, if we have to cut something, let's cut this.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. If you recall back with the feasibility design, we had an indoor range, we had a evidence impound garage on site, and we had a large garage on that. To make, as time went on and the costs increased, in order to get this project into budget, we've cut everything out of our building that we can. I think I said a few weeks ago that we are at the base level with a small garage to move forward. And that is actually with the hope that in the future we'd be able to add on because I think we're going to outgrow that very fast. So I don't think there's anything, there's not really any more wants in the building. We are down to a base operational level.
We're at minimum viable product, which is what I wanted to hear. I mean, it's not ideal, obviously, when we're talking about adding scope and money, but it's what I wanted to know is like, there's nothing else that we can cut to be bare bones. And I appreciate the backup there on that. I would say then that my only other thought on this is if we have anything else, right now that we know, hey, this could be a risk going forward? Like the parking garage, like we know, like, hey, we needed more parking and we're just tracking it as a risk and a hopeful. Is there anything else that we need to count right now that we should be prepared to discuss in the near future that may come up?
I would have to yield on some other team that does more with building than with me. I don't really know. I don't want to be surprised with anything, but I'm sure it's going to happen. And I hope that that we've got enough contingency and enough foresight or time to maneuver around it. So I do hope that we'll do frequent updates on the building process, and Kramer Brothers has been great with giving us heads up on things we need to prepare for. So we'll try to be much more transparent moving forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Coran, you're next.
So I think we owe it to the taxpayers to build this right. If we're going to spend $11.6 million and from day one, we're at capacity, which is basically where we'd be. And we're looking at spending 3 to 4% of the total project to get exactly what we want in the hopes of turning this into a 50-year property where we don't have to worry about this in my lifetime. And I don't want to get picky at the $500,000, but technically it's $482,000 to start because we're $18,000 short on the main budget. And then we can start counting in savings, the $75,000 or perhaps more from your vehicles. And do you know what our contingency number is on our construction?
Eric,
right now, yeah, it's $500,000. Here, I'll get back. Yeah. It is $550,000.
So in your opinion, is that a healthy contingency? Is it something, I know we can't hold you to it to say we're going to have something left, but as far as construction costs go, are we in good shape, or are we average, or are we in trouble?
No, at this point, for Kramer Brothers, in our experience, have a guaranteed maximum price for a project type like this, which is a remodel. A 5% contingency, and this is about 5.5% contingency, is a healthy contingency in our opinion.
So I would say to the entire council, we're at 482 minus 75. We have a healthy contingency. We have an old station to sell. It's not 500,000. This is going to come in less. This is going to be a $200,000 to $300,000 expense. And I think, and when I kind of started badgering Jody with questions and Jennifer after our last presentation at council. And, there was some hopes that there was a storm shelter. Do we see savings shaping up on that? Or is it still too early to tell?
Well, the storm shelter we don't need, but I'm really cautious to say that it's a savings because we don't know what else might come up. So I want to be real careful that I don't mislead anyone. We continue to look for savings in the design by doing different materials and doing different things with the design to help cost money or save money. I think Eric's sick of me telling him to sharpen his pencil. But we will continue doing that. I just don't want to tie us down any dollar amount yet because we haven't even gone to bid yet. So I want to be careful.
Okay. Well, I guess I don't have any questions. I would just say to the council, we build it right from day one. We're not going to come back. This is something I've learned throughout my lifetime. We say we're going to come back and redo something. It's not. Other projects are going to come in line. It's going to be more expensive. If we're going to do it, this is the time to do it. I think it makes sense. And as far as the scope of the overall project, we're talking a few percentage points. This makes sense to do.
And Mr. Fire.
Yeah. But the history that I have in Marshfield, I've got about 27 years. So I was involved, the big one, the first one I was involved with was the fire department. And we had planned this fire department and we came up with a number. And then we found out that we didn't have a basement. So we tried to get a full basement, but after doing some, bargaining, we got half the basement. I think that the fire department would probably wish that we would have gave them a full basement, but we didn't. Then we went on to the library. Okay, the new library was going to be built, and there was funds raised for the new library, and there was also funds raised for the what is the community center now. When it came time to build and finish the library, they took the funds that were set aside for the senior center to finish the library. So now we had an empty building we had to do, and there was a number out there. I don't care, say there was $13 million. But all of a sudden, that's already been spent, and we've also had to take some other money. So Mr. Wagner just about had a stroke when we figured out that we had to build this building. So this is nothing new in building. I happened to be on the county board when we had planned to build a new jail. The new jail was estimated to be $58 million. I got off the council, I got off the county board, and when the final number came in, it was $98 million. And the panic couldn't be there because they had to build a jail because the state was going to shut us down and we weren't going to have a jail. So nothing's concrete. Just because we plan something and we put numbers out there, there's no guarantee. Life is not a guarantee. If you can tell me what your hamburger and your steaks are going to cost you tomorrow in the store, good luck.
And we're back to Mr. Rigel.
Mr. Coran, could you repeat the motion again, just to make sure we're all on the same page? I think I've understood.
My motion is to move to incorporate the 27 stall option and proceed with planning, design, and financing of the project as the preferred alternative, and return to us any necessary budget, financing, or project amendments that are needed to meet the August deadline to order the prefab walls.
Perfect, thank you.
And I don't see any more requests to speak, so just heard the motion. We have a second. Please vote.
Behrman?
Yes.
Tompkins?
Aye.
And that motion passes. Item R, an update on the comprehensive plan project presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, again, City Planner James Levin is not here to speak. He's on vacation, but in order to keep the mayor and the council apprised of the comprehensive plan project, offer a look at what's coming around the bend, he wanted me to share this update with you tonight. And a reminder, this will be an ongoing discussion topic over a lot of council meetings. We want you to be part of this process going forward. So where are we right now? Phase 1 is underway. The immediate priorities are to adopt a public participation plan, which is required under the state's comprehensive planning requirements, to appoint a steering committee to guide the process, and to establish the 2026 and 27 budget and consultant approach that we're going to take in terms of financing this work. Phase one began about 60 days ago. We're a little bit behind the original schedule, so we have limited fudge room if we're going to meet the December 31st, 2027 target date for adoption. 3 quick things I want you to know about. First of all, decision point number 1. As I said, we need a public participation plan that's required under state law before any plan work has legal effect. So again, just to clarify, this will be a locally adopted document. There's no state approval requirements. They require that we have one and that we keep it updated, but their only role otherwise is to get a copy of the final adopted plan and have that down there in Madison. The project will be city funded, so the state planning goals are advisory and not required and not binding for the city. So recommendation number 1 will be coming up next month. You'll see it on a council agenda to adopt a public participation plan, and the city planner will be presenting that to you on either the 14th or the 28th of July. The second of the 3 decision points will be, as I mentioned, the budget and consultant approach that we take. You earlier this year, you adopted, or approved, I should say, a $50,000 budget resolution to help fund the process. The intent that staff has is to use that for some initial work from the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. We can get work from them at a lower cost. That'll be technical work that we can get going now, demographic assistance, housing study, and some of the data elements that will be easier and cheaper done by them than by a consultant. And they'll help us with the public engagement piece and activities tied to the plan. So the intent will be to request additional funds in the next budget cycle for 2027 to carry the remainder of the process and the consultant help that we'll need for that. Just to remind you, $50,000 is not going to be the total cost of this project. There'll be more expense in 2027, and you'll hear more about that later, depending upon the consultant we pick and the approach that we take and how much work the consultant is going to have to do. Now, we're still recruiting for a community development director. That person in place would be a big help in terms of doing some of the work in-house and helping guide the process. We can also use more help from North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. So we really don't know the full extent of the cost at this point. And then decision number 3 is the internal team and steering committee. We have an internal team already established. It's part of the work plan. It didn't require council approval. That's department heads and that type of thing. So anyway, the appointment action that's going to be sought next is working with the mayor to get a steering committee appointed. City planner has, I believe, advised the mayor of some people that he believes would be good for the steering committee based on their positions and their involvement in the community. And that'll be coming forward in July. So the timeline, like I said, we've fallen back a touch. This will compress the phases 3 through 5 of the plan, if you've seen it, in 2027. And it will increase the odds if we don't finish by December 31st of 2027. It's not a drop dead date. Just to let you know, we're not going to planning prison in Madison if we don't make it. But we want to get as close as we can, hopefully, to finishing the plan in calendar year 2027. A couple other things real quickly before I wrap up this update. Under state law, the project deadline, as I mentioned, in 2027, there's no automatic penalty. But as we get beyond 2027, if we don't have a plan in place, it may have an impact to us. We talked before, I think, at a previous update about our eligibility for certain grants. If we don't have an updated plan in place, and certainly we want to be eligible for any grant we can get to help us in planning, community development, and other things. So we may be working with the city attorney ultimately to adopt a minimal amendment to allow us to carry forward into 2028 to be in good standing with the state in order to let the clock tick a little bit longer while the full plan work is being done. And then finally, we'll be working with the city attorney on a few things, including the mayor's appointment authority. Can there be residency requirements for the non-resident members? In other words, can non-resident members be part of this steering committee? Would it require the 2/3 exception that we have right now under I believe it's chapter 2 of the city code? And would it be possible even for a high school student to serve on the body? And then also some open meetings law issues that would come up potentially with a quorum. What if there's multiple people on the body from different agencies or departments? So all those things will have to be looked at. That's my update for now. I know it's kind of quick. I was speaking rather quickly, but I just want you to know, we want you to know what's going on. And we'll continue the updates through the process so you're not caught off guard by the timeline, the cost, or the decisions that you'll ultimately have to make on this body. With that, I would take any questions you have. Otherwise, it's just for information only tonight.
Are there any questions? And just, you know, James and I already have a list of people. They all haven't been contacted yet, but we're working on it. Item S, the results of the council staff survey on priority goals for the 3-year strategic plan presented by Steve Bark, City Administrator. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try and clear as much of the screen as I can. I don't know if I'll be able to, is there any way you can help me? If it can't be done, that's fine, but to be able to see the presentation. I know there's people on remotely. I don't know if I can do anything about that or if you can. Thank you. That's really helpful. I appreciate that. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm not going to dwell much on what we've already talked about before. I'm not trying to get rid of those people. I'm just trying to minimize their look on the screen, okay? Just to clarify that in case there's any doubt. Anyway, so I'm going to touch the first few slides on something I presented several weeks ago, but again, the framework is intended to be a chart, a framework for the city to work for the next 3 years. And contrary to documents that you see put on the shelf, our goal is to make that a guide for decision-making, whether it's allocation of resources, funding, whatever, as we move forward into 27 and beyond. So really quickly, again, the mission, vision, and values that we've adopted already in this process. The mission of the city of Marshfield is to deliver reliable public services and strong infrastructure with integrity and fiscal responsibility, fostering a safe and vibrant community for all residents and visitors. The vision is that Marshfield will be a safe and thriving and welcoming community that delivers exceptional public services, fosters economic vitality, and promotes responsible growth to ensure a high quality of life for all current and future residents. And then I won't read through all the values, but we decided in our sessions that we had back with the facilitator back in March that the 5 values we're gonna uphold were trust, quality, well-being, sustainability, and respect. And you see the adjectives that go along with that make up our strategic focus and what we want to be shooting for in terms of our decision-making and the way we conduct ourselves. And we want to be holding these up highly as we move forward. Now, this document as a whole has not been approved. I realize, but these are the mission, vision, and values that we've embraced as part of this process to date. And then the 6 strategic pillars that I'm going to cover now are listed, and they came out of the discussions we had back in the late winter: infrastructure and utilities, economic development, organizational strength, financial stability, community engagement, and quality of life. And again, I'm not really dwelling on these slides because these are things that you've seen, again, several weeks ago when I presented previously on this topic. And I do apologize for the fact it's taken a little while to get down the road on this. I've been dealing with some other things, but we really want to move this process forward as we move into the summer time period now. So I put out a request for all of you to take all the items that were on that list. You remember from the facilitator, I think it was a total in those 6 categories of maybe, I don't know, 30 or some goals that we identified in the strategic planning process with the facilitator, and rank them. Rank them in order of what you see as 1 through 5, 1 through 9, whatever the category was, as being the top items. I didn't get as many responses as I'd like. I'm not blaming anybody, but I worked with what I had. I got 4 elected officials to submit responses and 10 staff leaders out of about 15 total to submit responses ranking the various goals on the 6 categories. This is what we came up with as I tabulated the results from those 14 responses, and I looked at it from a council and staff perspective, and then an overall ranking from the numerical values that came out of those responses. We have 5 infrastructure, utility, and facility management goals, and you see yellow shaded are the ones that got the highest ranking in total. You can see the staff ranking and the council ranking were not exactly the same, but the 3 that I've yellow highlighted are the ones that clearly were the top. And this is no disrespect to the other goals you're going to see on this list. I think we could all agree that every goal in these 6 categories is something the city should be working toward, but where do we put our focus? And that's what came out of the responses that I got. So the top 3 are relocate the police department to Wildwood Plaza. We talked about that tonight. It's ongoing, so I realize it's already in progress. But the council ranked that number 2, so did staff. You say, how did it get number 1 overall if it got 2 from council and staff? But if you look numerically, that's what it turned out to be. The other 2 that were highly regarded were implement stormwater utility and develop a comprehensive street strategy. After that, there was a little bit of a break between the other 2 grades in terms of the numbers that I saw, and that's why I made the split there. Under economic development, housing, and land use, the 3 clear top winners, and by the way, if you look at these numbers, you're going to see it was absolutely, amazingly uniform that council and staff responses were exactly the same for all 9 items. 1 through 9, but the top 3 far and away were the Weinbrenner redevelopment, the comprehensive plan update, and trying to solicit and retain new industry and manufacturing to this community. A little bit of a break, and then the 2 that followed closely behind that were to identify and find a new police use, or a new use for the police station that we're vacating on the north end of downtown, and then to identify and fill vacant properties, be they residential, commercial, or industrial. The other ones all got votes as well, but there was a split in those categories. So I put those 2 in blue. You may wish to keep those on, but there was a break between the yellow shaded ones and the blue shaded ones. I just felt the blue shaded ones got enough support to include those in your consideration. Under organizational strength and staffing, far and away, wasn't even close. The top one was fill critical staff vacancies. We've been able to narrow those a little bit in recent months, but we still have several out there that we need to fill, including the community development director and the assistant city engineer. That was ranked number 1 by staff and council. There was a little break, and then the next 3 were to align our compensation plan and keep that up, a citywide succession plan for staff to make sure that we're preparing people to replace our staff leaders and others as they move on to other jobs or to retirement. And then to really build up our staff infrastructure. R&R is not rest and relaxation, okay? That is not part of our comprehensive or strategic plan. It's recruitment and retention. I tried to keep this to one screen as best I could on some of these line items, but to build up the staff infrastructure to prepare ourselves for successful recruitment and retention in the future. Cooperation with others is I kept it short there, but that's working with the library, police and fire commission, and Marshfield Utility. These are entities that have some specific standing in state law or city code in terms of operating under separate bodies that they report to. The desire there was called out in our meetings to see if we can't have a closer tie with them and improve our cooperation and coordination. And then finally, an orientation plan for both elected and appointed officials, including committee members, to make sure that people are really ready for their job as they're onboarded into the city in any way, shape, or form. There I've got the critical vacancies again, was at the top, and then the next three that I put in blue received significant votes. You see that they were all ranked 2, 3, or 4 by both council and staff. Well, except I think for one slightly outside of that window, but they seemed by the numerical numbers that I received that they're worthy of discussion to consider in the final plan. Financial stability and fiscal management is pretty close with all three of those toward the top. Staff and council disagreed a little bit, interestingly enough. Council put fiscal responsibility metrics at the top. Staff did not, as you'll see there, put that as high as some other goals. But ultimately, if you looked at the numbers, the three highlighted in yellow were definitely the three top vote getters. Actively identify and pursue new revenue sources, aggressively apply for grants whenever possible, and to work on fiscal responsibility metrics, maybe a dashboard type of thing to judge where we're at in terms of our financial efforts here in the city. Leveraging external resources such as maybe consolidation opportunities and maybe outsourcing when appropriate got votes, but it did not rate as highly as the other items. We had 3 under community engagement and public trust, and clearly the top 2 responses I got were for a communications director to be put in the position to actively and successfully lead citizen engagement in the city. That was clearly number 1 by both council and staff. And then engaging and using new tactics for involvement as we try to reach the public. Nothing against social media, nothing against some of the traditional things we've done, but things mentioned in the sessions we had with the facilitator included town halls. It included citizen surveys of all types, things we haven't been doing to try and reach out and get the public more engaged in what we do. Greater use of social media, I think, is always important when we can do it, but that ranked lower than the other 2 items. And finally, parks, recreation, and quality of life. Far and away the top ranking, and again, you see council and staff totally agreed on all 4 of these, is to complete the Brain Park projects that Justin and others have been working on. The 5-year or potentially less if we can do it, list of things to upgrade that facility got number 1 on both council and staff listing. And then ones that I'd like you to consider, there was a break between that and the next 2 vote getters. But I think a long-term use and purpose for our city parks, doing a review of all our parks and determining if there's anything we should do to address some of them. And then looking at revenue generating prospects for our parks as a way that we can increase dollars coming in from our various parks in some way, shape, or form to help support the park and recreation programs that we have here in the city. And they all outrank the promoting of recreation and culture with use of the help of Visit Marshfield. That will always be important, but it was lower regarded than the other 3. So here's what I think the next steps are in the process, although I look forward to some conversation when I'm done talking. First, I want you to determine if you think the list appears to be appropriate. Does it seem to cover what you want? If so, how do you look at the 13 yellow shaded items compared to the 7 blue shaded ones? 20 goals would be a lot to try and hammer into a 3-year program, and yet I don't want to rule out some ones that had support. A couple of those had support from the council, stronger than staff, and I want to respect the fact that this started as a council process with support from staff, so you may look at one where the council put it number 1 and the staff put it number 3 or something, and definitely want to have that included in the process because that's what you put at the top of your list. So I'm not trying to skew this in any way. Direct staff to draft an implementation timeline approach for this, to bring that back with a proposed plan for council review, hopefully sometime by the end of summer, if not earlier. Although I have no idea how long this is going to take. I haven't really talked to staff leaders. I intend to discuss this with our staff leaders tomorrow morning, 8:30 when we meet. Whenever that's ready to bring the plan forward, and whatever's left of 2026, that time through December 31st of 2029 would be the time period of this plan that we want to try to work on these goals and get them adopted and approved and implemented. And then the other 2 pieces that I mentioned before, we want to conduct a public engagement plan to promote this strategic effort. We want to get our community groups and our citizens in general up to speed on what we're doing and why, take comments that they have and try to be doing what we think is best for the city. And then to provide quarterly updates at these meetings, at every council meeting, once every 3 months. What is the progress we've made? That did not always happen with our previous 3-year plans. What have we accomplished? What have we finished? What have we started that we're in progress with? What have we not gotten to, perhaps because of other pressing things that go on? I'll be honest, I think I've said this before, during our first 3-year plan, we were in the middle of COVID, and some of those things on the list we had took a back seat for several months because of what we were dealing with. So there may be some reasons why we're not keeping up on them, but keep prodding ourselves to make progress on the established goals. And that would be my proposed direction going forward. But I look forward to discussion, and especially with respect to the first item, on what you think about the list of items that have been identified to include potentially in the list, and then any other comments that you'd like to make as we move forward. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Let's see. Any questions or comments? Mr. Coran.
I think the list is fine. I'd like to see 20 goals stuffed into 3 years, because it doesn't mean we have to acknowledge or meet them all. And some of the goals kind of work with one another. So if we solve one, it might not too off. So, but otherwise, I like the list.
True. I also think, if I can chime back in for a second, it's instructive to me that so many of the goals that you just looked at on that presentation, and I will send this to you maybe yet tonight or tomorrow morning, first thing, by email. It's instructive to see how many of those goals the participating council members and staff had the same. Yeah, I pointed out a couple where, council had something as a number 1 and staff had something as the same thing as a number 3 and 4, and vice versa. But the majority of those that you just saw had council and staff pretty well lined up, suggesting that the discussion we had back in March and the importance level of the items before you is pretty much viewed the same across the board by everybody connected with the city. So I found that as not just instructive, but very positive to see. I really did.
Ms. Tompkins.
Thank you. I would say yes to all 6 items. I think the list is appropriate, especially the number 1 and 2s that are yellowed. I think that you could bring it back for us to approve, and communications potentially could be the key person for figuring out public engagement. And then lastly, for the updates, our mayor was a former member of the Utilities Commission, so he's quite familiar with how the utilities report these goals on a quarterly basis. It's a simple chart. It's done with red, yellow, and green, and it gives us a percentage that's completed, what needs to be done still, and who's responsible. So it's not a long presentation, but it's very visual, and I would recommend potentially copying that type of report.
That's a really good point. I think everybody knows that if we walk out of this room, with whatever number of goals, if it's 20 or some other number, and we don't have the kind of thing you're talking about to assign a responsible person, have a process, and to track and measure it going forward, we're not going to end up on 12/31/29 with what we wanted. So I think that's a really good suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Cran.
Yes. Steve, thank you for the comprehensive list. Just to nitpick a little bit, for me, as a person, I would like to see more fun, recreation, and more cultural, performing arts, something a little more cultural in there. But otherwise, job well done. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, the fact that item about working with Visit Marshfield to promote more cultural and those types of opportunities, that doesn't mean it goes by the wayside and we don't talk about it again. It was simply, comparing that with Brain Park and some other things. So duly noted and well taken.
I see no further questions, so.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I look forward to working with you as we go forward.
Thank you, Steve. Item T is a 2025 financial year in review presented by Jennifer Solinsky, Finance Director.
All right, so before I get started with that, I just do want to clarify that our audit is still in process. It's going through the review phase at our audit firm. So these numbers are almost final, but I do reserve the right to, if they find something in their final review, to come back and update a number. So we'll start at the global level and kind of work our way into the details. As I stated earlier, the change in our fund balance for the general fund is $1.1 million. It is a combination of increased revenue and avoided expenses. So at the very highest level, we're looking at an increase in fund balance of 1.1 million. If we dig into the details, beginning with revenue, you'll notice that I've got our revenue categories by columns of revised budget, what we actually earned, and then a variance with some explanations. The first one was our property taxes. We did have a favorable variance there, meaning more money earned than budgeted, and that was because our chargebacks were received earlier than I anticipated. Those other entities actually have until February of the subsequent year to make those payments, but they made them in 2025. Our intergovernmental revenue also had a bit of a variance. We did end up receiving some COVID-era airport grants. Various granting entities worked through the final paperwork for us to receive those. Our miscellaneous revenue includes our interest revenue. So that was about $350,000 favorable to what we budgeted. And then our other financing source is where we intentionally apply fund balance, which was 2.27 million. And then we did have transfers from the Economic Development Fund, favorable variance of 280. So that kind of takes care of the revenue side. The chargebacks, that this is year 1 of 5 that we will have that scenario. And then interest revenue, I'm anticipating that to go down a bit as we're already seeing the rates fall. If you're a visual person, this is the representation there, with the largest blue being property taxes and the gray being intergovernmental revenue. When you look at this picture, we're looking at about 87% of our revenues are somewhat tied to regulation and mostly out of our control. And then the rest are fees and interest earnings that we realize. If we look into the expenditure side of the general fund, general government is where most of the favorable variance is, and that is because we did not consume all of our contingency that we had forecasted. Additionally, wages and benefits and supplies are the reason for that favorability. Same with public safety supplies, and then in public works, mostly wages and benefits. So if we take that, here's a visual representation. If we look at our revenues and our expenditures, a lot of that favorability is kind of one-time or unusual things, avoiding some important positions, and then interest revenue, which is going down. This is another way to look at the same expenditures. Before you saw them by category, now you're looking at them by function. It really stands out. You can see wages and benefits were nearly $500,000 favorable to our budget. And then supplies and expense, and that's occurring in public works and public safety. And then grants and contribution, that is avoiding the use of contingency budgeting. And there would be a visual representation of that same slide. So what that looks like in terms of our fund balance, I wanted to kind of give you a historical trend. Back in 2019, we were probably at an all-time low with our fund balance. We have different classes of fund balance. There's things that are non-spendable, restricted, committed, and unassigned. Non-spendable means it's just not in a form that's easily converted into a cash type asset. So we have been steadily in improving our position with our fund balance. In terms of our policy, I'll give you the visual there. Our policy is 25 to 30% of budgeted expenditures. And you'll note that ending 2025, we're at 33%. So that's where I was alluding to earlier. We have to spend some of that, or we can spend some of that down and still feel comfortable with what we have in our unassigned balance. That takes care of the general fund. And then we have a class of funds called special revenue funds. These funds have their own dedicated funding source, and we track those separately in a different fund. And we can begin with our room tax. We have an 8% room tax. We collect that, distribute 70% of that to our tourism entity, and 30% goes to our Parks and Rec capital improvement fund. So we would expect to have a zero fund balance because we don't retain anything in there. You'll also note that we got $100,000 more in revenue than anticipated. So hopefully that's a trend that continues. Our second special revenue fund is the Economic Development Fund. This one we also call the 205 Fund frequently. We had a very healthy increase in our fund balance in this fund as well, mostly due to the dividend that we received from Marshfield Utilities. Again, this will be thought of as a one-time increase, as for the next several years that dividend is expected to be zero as the capital calls are increasing, mainly with the ATC dividend and whatnot. So where this is now is probably as high as it's going to be for the foreseeable future. This fund is also advancing money to TIF District 12, which is underperforming at this time. Also holds our parkland dedication revenues, and we have a reserve in case we need to buy back any lots in our Daniels addition. That leaves about 1.8 million that's available for appropriations. We also have a fund for donations. Mostly this is public safety related. The big hitters in this fund would be our K-9 Officer Fund. For 2025, the fire department's UTV project, ash tree removal and replacements. Essentially, anytime someone gives us a donation that must be used for a specific purpose, we park it here, assign it a project tracking number, so at any time we can report back to those donors on how we spent the money or where we're at in their project. We also have the bid. This is the Business Improvement District. This is the revenue is a self-imposed tax. We pay that back to them as it's collected. There's a little bit of a fund balance there due to timing or to taxes that are still receivable. Next, we have our shared ride service. In here, the remaining, we have revenue and expenses. The revenues are user fees and then grants. Expenditures are all with our contracted provider. There's a small fund balance left that represents money that we've borrowed in order to purchase vehicles. That's just a timing thing. The state opens up those capital purchase timeframes periodically. Next we have the Communications Fund. You notice I've highlighted this one in yellow. It means some caution. We have been talking about the decline in cable fees. The budget anticipated a drop in our fund balance of 15,000. So it's looking like we'll start 2027 with 46,000 available in our fund balance. Over time, I'll just make a note that since 2020, the revenues have decreased 34%, expenses have gone up 26%, and we've been bridging that gap with the fund balance. So in 2020, that fund balance was 128,000, and now you see we're down to 47. So we do need to pay some extra attention to the communications fund. We do have funds for municipal court for Spencer and Stratford. We contract with them to provide their municipal court. Any fund balance in these two funds, which is about $33,000, can be transferred to the general fund as needed. The last special revenue fund we have is our TIF housing increment. This was the extension of TIF District Number 5, where we had received about $437,000. We can use 75% of that. We must use 75% of that for low-income housing projects, and 25% can be spent on general housing initiatives, as we listed them in our resolution to hold that TIF district open for the extra year. We did spend this year $6,500 of our low-income housing funds. So the balance left for low income is $321, and then $109 for regular housing initiatives. Next, we have our debt service fund. This accounts for our principal and interest payments and our expenditures related to borrowing. We do have a fund balance just shy of $473,000. Some of that is restricted for future debt service payments, which was generated from premium received on our 25 debt issuance. And then when TIF District Number 5 closed, we transferred its remaining debt service obligations to the fund to be paid out as they become due. And lastly, we have $148,000 which is assigned to pay future issuance costs. So prior to maybe 3 years now, we would pay fully for issuance costs with proceeds from debt. So paying interest on the cost of borrowing itself. In 2023, we began investing our proceeds and have been earning interest. That interest has accumulated, so I anticipate now we have enough to pay out of pocket for those borrowing costs rather than adding them to the borrowing itself. Next, we have our capital project funds, and the first one is our infrastructure or streets capital outlay. We have a fund balance of $2 million in there. I'd say that's a little unusual for this fund. Most of that is related to our 25 asphalt paving and mill in place program, where the streets department was busy doing work for our wastewater department. So this money is available for them to be spending this year. Our area photos and planometrics project is still in process. That's $250,000. And Becker Road stormwater is also $250,000. And then we have pits and quarries, which is a mini internal service fund at $148,000. In our public facilities, we have a small balance, which is related to a project at City Hall and a little bit of carryover from our university projects. Public safety, we've got a $5.8 million fund balance. You'll recall we did our borrowing in 2 phases to help with cash flow and to keep ourselves under the $10 million maximum borrowing limit for tax exempt purposes. So most of that belongs to the police department renovation, and a small amount belongs to the fire department's training center, where they are accumulating funds for future improvements there. The airport has a small fund balance. It's all reserved for upcoming projects related to the runway extension. Parks and Recs capital outlay has a healthy fund balance. About 250,000 of that relates to unallocated room tax. So in recent years, our revenue from room tax has been increasing. During the COVID years, we were in that mode of spending the money as we were getting it. We have, because of those additional revenues, we're at a point where we have the money ahead of time and are appropriating that in future budgets. So you'll see that come down as CIP projects are added. The Brain Park restroom has $209,000, and then park amenities and the pool add in another $108,000. The next group of funds we have are our tax increment financing funds. I'll just roll through these rather quickly. Most of these are in a really healthy position. TID 4, the expenditure period is over, meaning no new projects. So we're just basically waiting for all the tax increments to come in order to pay the debt obligations. I anticipate that we'll be able to close the TID in 2028 if the values hold steady, which would be earlier than its maximum termination date of 2033. Same story with TID 7. No new projects are allowed there, and I anticipate it can terminate in 2029. TID 9, which is Central Avenue and Ives. The end of the expenditure period has not yet happened, so we could incur new projects if something became available. If nothing becomes available, I would estimate that we can terminate this TID early in 2029.
Jennifer, can I just interrupt you one moment? I believe that our phone dropped here and I need to try to dial back, I think.
Goodbye.
I always love that.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press. Please enter the meeting passcode followed by pound.
Oh.
You entered 82237. This meeting passcode is invalid. Please re-enter the meeting passcode followed by pound.
Oh, 1, 2 more, 2.
You are in the meeting now. There are 4 participants in the meeting.
Natasha and Derek, could you please confirm you can hear us?
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Okay, back to TIF District number 10, which is our Marshfield Mall area. Its end of expenditure period is in 2037, but if we don't get any new projects and the values hold, we could potentially terminate that district in 2030. TIF District 11 is Veterans Parkway and Highway 10. This one, we cannot predict its termination because we are considering a street project in the near future. So we'll just have to wait and see on this one. TID 12 is our East Yellowstone Industrial Park. This one is somewhat in a precarious situation. It has a negative fund balance of $262,000. We did have our first project go into this district, but we haven't received any increment yet for as of 2025. So this TIF district has a balance yet to be collected of $870,000. Its maximum termination date is 2041. So we do have time to get a project and earn increment. It's just the present condition is not favorable. TID 13 is our South Hume Avenue. End of expenditure period is in 2036. I'm not going to give an estimate on when we could terminate this one. We have an active project with Green Acres. It's currently performing better than expected, so that's positive. TID 14 is Adams Avenue. This is one of our newer district. Again, I won't predict when we could close this one. Staff is currently looking at infrastructure needs to see if any of that increment could be spent on future projects. TIF District 15 is our newest district, has a fund balance of just over $50,000. This one is expected to go to the maximum termination date of 2051. The last group of funds that we have are our proprietary funds. The first proprietary fund is our enterprise fund of the wastewater utility. Our wastewater utility is very healthy. It has a net position of just under $73 million. 23 million of that is unrestricted. And then 46 million is invested in assets, net of its related debt. And then we have 3 million that's restricted for debt service and equipment replacement. We've got nearly $3 million of capital improvements budgeted for this year, and another 16 million budgeted in or expected in our 5-year CIP plan. So we'll kind of keep an eye on our unrestricted net position there. We do have a rate study occurring this year. And so we will see if there needs to be any adjustments to our rate structure. The next enterprise fund is our emergency medical services. Very good news with this fund. It has rounded the corner, has an unrestricted net position of just under $2 million. And there's a few reasons for that. This year we received 2 years worth of our assistance program payments. There was a mix up with the DOR. We didn't get it in 24. We got 2 years now. Another very positive event is that our accounts receivable has decreased $190,000 since last year. And we are participating in the Wisconsin Ground Emergency Medical Transportation Program. This was a new program in 25 where the state allowed you to submit your actual expenses for Medicaid related services. The reimbursement rate is very low, and so they are refunding back to us a difference between our actual cost experience and what the approved reimbursement rate is. So that was worth $291,000 for years 23 and 24. So we'll keep applying for that funding as long as the program exists. All in all, the EMS fund had a cash balance of $1.2 million at the end of 25. Just a very short few years ago, that was a negative 600. So they've done everything right to control their budgets. and do what they can to make the healthy position that they're in today. Part of what we are doing with the emergency medical services to help prop them up is we had been levying for their portion of the debt on their building. We can start to think about whether we need to continue to do that given the position they're in. Our last proprietary fund is our internal service fund. This acts like a business, but the customer is the government itself. Here again, at the end of 21, the fund had an unrestricted fund balance of just $708,000. We have now unrestricted net position of just under $1.9 million. So that money has to go to purchase all of the equipment utilized by our streets department. The fund is used to account for goods on a cost reimbursement basis. And because operating costs and equipment replacement can fluctuate from year to year, rates are set to achieve a break-even point over time rather than each individual year. Our rates follow the state guidelines, and we implement those as soon as the state releases those. So again, while we are looking really good in this fund, in 10 or 15 years when we need to replace all of our high cost equipment, such as dump trucks, the goal is to have enough money to be able to do that. And with that, I will take any questions or comments that you have.
Derek or Mr. Werman, you have a question? No?
Oh.
Councilor Wavy.
I'm sorry, I saw your hand earlier. I apologize.
Ms. Spiros.
Jennifer, this is probably one of the better, most comprehensive presentations I've seen as far as budget goes. I don't own a printer at home, so I'm hoping that I can get a hard copy of this presentation.
Absolutely.
It would be nice to have it alongside our budget book when we start that in October, at least for me. So I want to thank you for all the time and effort you put into that.
Thank you.
Yeah, 4 quick points. First of all, I would also commend Jennifer on an outstanding presentation. Very thorough and very easy to understand and well done. And of course, the good results are also easy to take too, since the numbers are generally favorable. 3 other quick points. First of all, the point that Tom Laux, our communications director, made when he was at the podium last time, and I think Councilmember Tompkins had echoed it, asking it to be looked at under future agendas, is this issue we have right now with the communications department and the funding, given the reduction we've seen in the last couple of years in the franchise fee coming from Charter Communications. So know that we're doing that. It'll be discussed internally and certainly with you to try and figure out where that's going as we head in toward the 2027 budget. 2 other things. I just want to report that we had 6 closings so far this month on the Daniels Edition properties. As I sit here right now, there's only 1 of those 23 parcels that's left unsold. And I've had someone talk to me the last couple of weeks about buying that. So, what was an investment from a few years ago and looked a little bit shaky as we were sitting around in 2022 has paid off. And actually it appears we're going to do very well financially. We can maybe report that soon in terms of what that looks like at the end. There was a little bit of heartburn when we got into that, whether or not we'd recoup our investment, but it's happening. So cause for celebration at this point, but more so when we get that last parcel sold. And then finally, I just want to commend all the people in the last 6 years. Rebecca, you've been part of this, Mike as well. Nick, I think you came in toward the end of it as well, or toward the beginning of it maybe. That period from 2019 to 2025 was not always pretty. We were in a fairly dark position in 2019 in general finances and in the EMS fund in particular. I want to commend all the members of council, the mayors, the city staff that's been working at it hard. Jennifer and her staff has been a big part of it as well. It's gotten us to a much better position in general finances and especially in the EMS fund, which is, as Jennifer just said tonight, in a far better position than it was several years ago. So not that we want to rest on our laurels, but it's something to celebrate at this moment. That's all I have.
And I will echo that because when I left 3 years ago, things were not looking as good as they look now. Thank you, Jennifer. Item U is a request We talked about 2025. Request to approve the 2027 budget calendar presented by Steve Bard, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'll be fairly short with this. It's looking ahead now to the 2027 budget process. And I sent out to you in the amended agenda yesterday a proposed budget calendar for 2027. I will note at the beginning that oftentimes we have a conflict with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities annual conference that some of you go to. This year, that conference will be held in Appleton on the 7th through the 9th of October, so it will not cause any conflict with the dates that you have on the proposed calendar. I'm showing on the calendar that Thursday, October 8th would be the day that we deliver the proposed budget to the mayor and council. And then we have 3 meetings scheduled: Tuesday, October 13th, Monday, October 19th, and Monday, October 26th, with a 4th one if necessary, 2 days later on Wednesday, October 28th. The crunch there at the end, if we need to have that 4th meeting, is in order to make the timeline to get the budget wrapped up and published in the newspaper to allow the public hearing and adoption of the 2027 budget and tax levy on November 24th. That will give enough time for the finance staff and working with the county to get the bills out that we need to get by the middle of December. You notice I don't have in this year's version of the budget calendar some of the prelude to that, which would be some of the updates we're going to give you at council meetings, but those aren't going away. Jennifer and I have talked about, and I think she alluded to this in her comments, that there'll be a time in July where we'll be giving you a look at the framework of the 2027 budget, what we're looking at, just so you see where things stand before you start looking at any decisions and discussion. And then we'll give you updates, throughout August and September of where we're at. As we get the budget numbers from the department heads, we're going through them. We get a preliminary look about how good or bad it might look and what we might have to do to adjust. So you'll be kept in the loop as we go ahead toward that early October date. With that in mind, I would recommend approval of the 2027 budget calendar as presented.
Mr. Cran, you have a motion.
Motion to approve the calendar as presented.
Mr. Childs, you second that?
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Wehrman,
Yes.
Tompkins,
Aye.
The motion passed. Item V, discuss council options to fill a vacant council seat in District 3 following the resignation of Natasha Tompkins. Steve Bard, City Administrator.
Thank you. And before I start this brief presentation, which I'll be doing in place of Jessica Schifferl, our city clerk, who is not here tonight, I want to thank and commend Natasha on her service to the community as a member of this council. I found you to be very active and engaged with staff and the citizens. And as I say sometimes when people leave the council, no one knows, including me, to be honest with you, what it's like to be an elected official and to get phone calls and have to make some of the decisions and the interactions we have. So thank you for all that you've done in your time here. This won't be the last time we'll thank you, but I want to do that as part of this presentation tonight. So on June 19th, Natasha did submit a resignation as council member from District 3. It's effective August 1st. As noted in the city clerk's memo, which I think was fairly thorough, the council has 4 options as we look to fill this vacancy under section 2.06 of the city code. I'm not going to read Jessica's memo. I trust that maybe you've had a chance to look at it, but here are the 4 options in a nutshell. Number 1, you could hold a special election to fill the vacancy. You would do this likely concurrent with the February and April elections in 2027. You say, why not earlier? We couldn't make either the August, I don't believe, or the November election from what I'm being told by Jessica. The earliest we could have it would be November 16th, and that would be after the November election earlier that month. So that would be the earliest you could have a special election, but you could go that direction. Number 2 is you could appoint someone to fill the vacancy until a special election is held in early 2027. And there's a process for that you probably have seen in a memo in terms of how we would advertise, take interested parties' emails or letters for a period of time, have them be introduced to the council, and then subsequently take a vote in early August. Number 3, you could appoint someone to fill the vacancy until the next election for that office in April of 2028. So effectively what you would be doing is not just appointing them to fill out the first year of Ms. Tompkins' term through April of 2027, but you'd be voting to appoint someone, in that case, to fill out the vacancy for the balance of her term. through April of 2028. And the fourth thing, which I would not recommend certainly, but you can do it, is to allow the position to remain vacant until the next election for that office in April of 2028. I'm not here to make your decision, but that would be leaving the residents of District 3 without representation, presumably, for that time period. So those are the four alternatives that you have before you. At this time, we would look for council direction, and we would move forward accordingly. Move forward, if I slow down, accordingly. Thank you.
Mr. Franz, you're up first.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm open to these options. I wouldn't want to see the seat be vacant. I would like us maybe to do, I think the options were mixed up here. I wouldn't want to leave the position vacant. I think that if we did a balance, appoint for until the next election, and which, of course, would be the April 2027. So we do the appointment and then we do the election. That would be my recommendation.
So the appointment to fill out the first year, but then the second year would be based upon an election in April 2027.
Correct. And that person that was appointed would have the option of course, running. You know, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Tompkins has her hand up, but then I'll entertain the motion.
I would just say that as a precedent, the council has often appointed someone to fill out the remainder of the term. That's what we did for District 5. Mr. Wagner, he resigned in September after his election, and so my resignation would be 1 month earlier than his. And there's a couple of significant pros to doing it this way. If we were to appoint, or if you were to appoint and have that person redo an election in the spring of 27, because of the way we do the council elections, they would also have to have an election the next year. And so that would be significant cost to them, as well as significant time to do 2 elections in a row. Also, they would come on as a new member, and by this December would have to submit that they wanted to be on the ballot and start a campaign when they've only been on the council for about four months and are actually trying to do the work of council. So I think giving them the time, just like we did for the District 5 seat, giving them the time to get used to the position, and then if they want to be reappointed, they can go through that election process, would probably cause more people to step forward. District 3 is full of excellent candidates, full of excellent people who, if they were willing to serve our community in this way, they would just do such an excellent job.
Thank you. Mr. Cran, you have a motion.
My motion would be to stay consistent with past actions and appoint the position for the entirety of Natasha's term.
And Mr. Giles, you second that?
I do.
Okay. Is there further discussion on it? Mr. Cran?
Yes, I would just say I would defer to Council Member Tompkins' choice, and I think if that's the case, you've done that in the past, I would defer to that. Yes, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Wareman,
Yes.
Tompkins,
Aye.
And that motion passes. Thank you all. Item W is items for future agenda. Mr. Cran.
Based on our conversation about the police station, I just want to reiterate discussion of what we're going to do with the old police station, specifically to make sure we're all on the same page, whether there's a consensus of putting this back on the tax roll, and following up with Mrs. Spiro's comments about using the money proceeds to pay off the police station. I think that should all be encompassed in discussion sooner rather than later.
I think the intent is to bring that back with financing plan for you to review.
And Mr. Cran.
Thank you. I would like the council to consider, and I know there's going to be some groans in here, but consider a wheel tax for the city of Marshfield. And no one wants to hear additional tax. I certainly don't. We pay one of the highest property taxes and taxes here in the country here. I'm going to say that we should consider this. In my limited social contacts, I say that Marathon County wheel tax has been a huge success in raising revenue for the city. Huge success. And I would consider, if we do that here before Wood County would do it, the money stays here in Marshfield. Now, it would be $25 per vehicle. I think less than $1 goes to Madison. It would be a great revenue raiser. Plus, this is the biggest thing, property owners like myself that are assessed thousands of dollars for public sidewalks and for, for sewer lines. This would be a fund for that. I mean, the grants for the street development are very limited. I mean, it's an 80-20, but it's very restrictive, and we could use some of that. My vision, for example, for 4th Street, and I'm, talking to a lot of constituents, neighbors, we need to widen the terrace, the boulevard or terrace, is to prevent snow from keep going on the sidewalks continuously. None of us want to be out there 4 or 5 times every time it snows to remove the snow. We're all in violation of that city ordinance.
Mr. Kranz?
Yes.
Could we not argue it at this point? We'll just put it on the future.
Okay, yes. Yes, please, thank you.
Anything else for future agenda? Oh, Ms. Dell.
I want to piggyback on Scott to make sure that we're including the Baltus building in those discussions as well.
Yeah, I forgot how you stated it, so I'll have to follow up on that with the city clerk. Oh, okay, okay. I'm sorry, gotcha.
Anything else? Okay. Item X, I put my glasses on for this. Adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statutes, chapter 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public property, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, with a possible sale of city-owned property and a skywalk lease over Calshed Street. Ms. Dallas, your motion?
Motion is to adjourn into closed session.
Mr. Rigel, you second that?
I do.
Okay, please vote.
Wehrman,
Yes.
Derek,
Yes.
Tompkins.
Aye.
And that passes. We will go into closed session. We'll take a A motion, Mr. Rigel, you have a motion?
I'd move to, is it approve or grant the authority to the?
Authorize, would you like me to read it?
Sure, you can read it.
Authorize Marshfield Utilities to proceed with the sale of property located at 1210 South Oak Avenue and direct the sale proceeds returned to Marshfield Utilities.
That's my motion.
That's my second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Wareman,
Yes.
Tompkins,
Aye.
Okay. That motion passes, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Dallas, second by Ms. Spiros. All in favor, or please vote.
Wareman,
Yes.
Tompkins,
Aye.
Korean.
Yes.
We're adjourned.